Hello, and welcome to Turning Data into Precision-Guided Insights for CX, a GovExec TV episode brought to you by KPMG. I'm your host, Troy Schneider. The expectations for customer service in government are higher than ever, thanks to rapidly evolving hybrid work environments, emerging technologies, and the standards that have been set by leading private sector service providers. According to new research, the desired improvements to personalization, choice, speed, and overall customer satisfaction require public sector organizations to break down silos and facilitate a culture of data sharing and collaboration. We've convened some of the top CX leaders in government and industry to discuss the challenges of that realignment and to preview the revolution it could bring about. Joining me today, we have Denise Kitts, the Executive Director of the Enterprise Measurement and Design Office at the VEO, the Veterans Experience Office in the Department of Veterans Affairs. Denise, thank you for being here today.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
We also have Sue Pan. Sue is the Branch Chief for Digital Services and Solutions at the National Cancer Institute, which is a part of the National Institutes of Health. Sue, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And we have Tom Frame. Tom is with KPMG, where he's a managing director. Tom, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Troy.
Absolutely. So let's start by talking through the challenges here. You know, the title of this program, Turning Data into Precision-Guided Insights for CX. For most agencies, what's standing in the way of that? And Denise, let's start with you.
Oh, love that. It's a great question. I think the number one, the biggest obstacle is data, getting access to data. I think you mentioned in your opening remarks about siloed systems. I think everybody has siloed systems in industry, government. It's the kind of the way we grew up. So if you really want to do good CX, it's really about getting access to data, getting all your data in one place, and then being able to kind of use the dark data that you have. So not just about using customer experience data, but I mean by dark data is your operational data. CX data kind of tells you what your customers are thinking. The operational data tells you what people are actually doing. So I think one of the challenges is, again, kind of getting all that data in one place so you can take action on it. And then I think, the other thing in terms of kind of what you could do to start out is, finding use cases that are really mission-oriented. For the VA, we had one particular use case where we constantly hear from veterans, like, why do I have to keep contacting you multiple places in VA to change my address? So it was one of those cross-cutting use cases that really pushed us to act and behave differently and putting all our data in one place, which really kind of started the foundation for a lot of other good things to come.
Very good. And Sue, is data where you start the conversation as well?
Absolutely. I think the biggest challenge to turn data into decisions, right, insights, is really, for me, is having cleansed data that has the right level of metadata with the business context, right? So what does that mean? It really needs to have the 5 W's. The when, the what, the why, the where, right? All of the 5 W's, and sometimes even the how. So that's number one. The second one is really having some taxonomy that helps you to classify the data. Like in the IT, as an IT leader, classify the different text areas, service areas for the IT into the right categories and use them consistently across. And then the third challenge is really not having the right level of data governance and the implementation of those governance processes and tooling to really ensure the quality of the data and the metadata. And I think also, as you touched upon, having the right use cases, really right use cases for business intelligence and analytics to drive how you do your, kind of metrics and how do you do your data collection is very important. And lastly, I think it's really understanding your customer, from the perspectives of different personas involved. And that's really critical for IT leaders and IT teams that, often we focus on technology. We forgot the intention. What is the business value? So those are really critical challenges that we have in terms of improving customer service, customer experience.
Right. And Tom, I see you nodding. You work with public sector organizations across government. At first, are those the same challenges that you would flag?
Yeah, one of the things that Sue just said that I want to hone in on is really defining the metrics, right? I think it's really important to understand and agree on as an organization what customer experience metrics that you're actually going to track that drive all the terminology, or that drive insights into customer experience when focusing on a digital transformation, right? And then more importantly than agreeing and defining the metrics, it's really how do you take those metrics and the insights that those metrics provide and turn those into action, right? Government agencies are being asked to do more with less on a consistent basis. So it's really using the metrics and the insights to drive where you're spending your dollars to get the best bang for your buck, or to get the most return from an investment from a customer experience perspective.
And how do you work with your partners in government to help them gather the right data, to know how to start that process of making sure that you have both the right data sets and properly cleansed in the ways that Sue and Denise mentioned?
Right. I think it's really about embedding customer experience and user experience in all aspects of transformation from the beginning, right? It's defining what you're going to measure and what you're going to track throughout the process. And I think it goes beyond looking at individual transactions and looking more at the total experience, right? Understanding how your customers are interacting with the data provided throughout the process to really look at the entire journey. I think it's important, from a government perspective, to look at the customer as more than just the American citizen that's consuming the service specifically, right? It's also important to look at the employee experience of those that are actually providing that service to the American citizen. And I think that's a super important thing to look at holistically.
Very good. And so I heard all three of you say you need to know your data, you need to know your customers, you need to know the right use case. Those are still big challenges. Sue, how does a leader within a government organization get started on that? Where do you start in addressing those?
Yeah, so I'm, again, a technologist and IT leader. So customer experience is actually new and not new in a sense, right? So two areas we're driving as we are leading the Digital Services Center for NCI. One is technical foundations for building up the technical capabilities for the IT teams to have the digital foundation, so that the teams can serve the customers better and more effectively, more efficiently. And the second aspect is really now focusing on how do we improve the customer experience, right? For our customers at NCI, this is internal staff, clinicians, researchers, fellows, right? Administrative staff, but also external community that we serve. The trainees, the grantees, the students, right? So, and even the end users of our products and services. So those are two aspects. And the first aspect, we've been focusing on for the past 3 years is building up that digital foundation. And what that means for me, leading the Digital Services Center, is really a few aspects. One is building up the single system of record of IT data, and that's very, very important that we keep track of all of the IT data for IT service management using the ITIL framework, covering all life cycles of ITSM, knowledge management, change management, incident tracking, service requests, service catalog, problem management, configuration management, asset management. So these may be too technical here, but these are all important aspects of IT service management. So we need to have a single system that keep track of all of that data. We also have a tailored IT engineering process that keeps track of the data coming in, from the customers, from demand, triaging of the demand, coming in from consultation into the, sometimes the analysis of alternatives, market research, and into the actual implementation, full life cycle implementation of the solution or products. So we need to keep track of that, providing governance across the entire life cycle for intake and closeout. So having that single system IT is very, very critical. And do you want me to kind of elaborate more?
A little bit, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the next aspect for the Digital Services Center is to really provide the technical capabilities as services to our customers, right? So that includes providing technical advisory consultation as a service. Formally declare that as a service so the researchers know where to reach out for help. Concept development, market research, cost analysis, buy versus build decisions, alternative analysis before they make a decision to actually do something.
Sure.
And then also really providing the actual engineering development delivery as a service, including software applications, cloud and system solutions, or implementation of technology platforms and tools. And then offering these technology platforms as an enterprise service as well to our customers, not only for IT teams to use them for our delivery, but also offer them as a service for the entire NCI to use. And then lastly, I think it's really providing kind of the operational framework for the Digital Services Center, doing some sort of technical governance review of everything we have within our portfolio so that we have that quality that we need for the customers that we serve.
And Denise, you were part of the team that started up the VEO. How did you get started on this at VA? Where did the efforts focus at first?
Oh, that's a great story. It started, so when we started the VEO office, we went off and we did benchmarking with a lot of top companies in CX, the Starbucks, the Ritz-Carltons. And what we learned is that, again, it was all about the data, right? Qualitative, quantitative data. The quantitative data coming from research, from surveys, qualitative data coming from ethnographic research with our customers. So it's a little bit like what Sue was saying, where it's a combination of, so we went off and we did research and we learned we did journey maps, we developed personas for our customers, we figured out what all the pain points were, and the bright spots and the moments that matter. And then we surveyed around that. And at the same time, we were doing that in the VEO office. We were partnered with OIT in the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, who was on this path of digital modernization. So it was just a great sort of perfect storm where the VEO office was kind of listening to the customer, understanding what the pain points were, and where we needed to focus our energy. And at the same time, we had our IT partners who were on this journey of digital modernization. So they were building the infrastructure, Sue was talking about, and modernizing the infrastructure, putting in modern data analytics environments, modern technology stacks for our digital channels. So it was just this great marriage of us understanding where the pain points were and them developing some of the infrastructure and the core capabilities, and we kind of brought that all together in terms of what should we prioritize and swing at first that really makes a difference to our customer. So that's basically how the journey started.
Great. And Tom, these stories touch on so many different parts of IT and leadership in the organization. How do you bring the right people together? I mean, there's the question of who owns CX in an organization. How do you knit together all the necessary skill sets and stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've heard from Sue and Denise, which I think is super impactful, is that in order to truly adopt CX in an organization, specifically around digital transformation, everyone needs to have an ownership and an accountability back to the core tenets of customer experience, and making sure, as I said earlier, that CX is really at the forefront of any digital transformation effort, right? I mean, that starts, if there is a CX office, starts there, but really goes down into the CIO, the CTO, and then really into the program offices, so that as we're looking at transformation holistically, looking at the entire journey, right? Not necessarily specifically what a given digital transformation effort's looking at to start with, but really what are the downstream impacts of that transformation or that modernization effort, and really making sure that everyone understands how that's going to impact the customer and putting the customer at the forefront.
And Denise, do you feel like the ownership question is clearly answered in VA?
Oh, I love that question. I think yes, because we have a formal office called the Veteran Experience Office. But to your question about who owns CX, I think to Tom's comment, everybody does. Yeah. So yes, I think we have the office. It's been codified. It's in policy, which goes a long ways for formality. But really, you can't do good CX without partnerships. And so while we have a formal office, and we could represent the voice of the veteran, it's really through all the partnerships that we have that where you change service delivery, right? So I would say that, I think we have a saying in VA, it starts with me. And so CX is owned by everybody, and good CX is absolutely at the hands of the employees. You can't deliver good CX without having a great employee experience. So we have a lot of partnerships both on the IT side to deliver better tools to the employees, but it really is, it's really, I think the last thing I would say about the CX part and ownership is that it really does start with leadership also. We couldn't have stood up in office if we didn't have senior leadership buy-in for that, and and having leadership have a strong voice about kind of the buck stops with me, and and anytime they're making decisions, I love sitting in meetings when I hear the leadership say, well, what's our customer saying? Right? How do they feel about it? What are our employees saying? Then that it really has trickled down through the organization.
And so I'd ask you to kind of stay on that topic of partnerships, and how do you how do you make sure that you're partnering with the key stakeholders and making sure that CX is aligned with the mission of the organization?
Yeah, so NCI is unique, right? So we're, we have a very unique mission, and we have world-class, researchers and clinicians, and they're really super smart. So, every day when you IT team work with them, you just feel inspired all the time. We have extensive research and technical expertise, but I don't think CX is formally defined, as what VA has done. But to all of your points, CX is owned by everyone. We have a central IT team, but at the same time, we have many business IT teams. We call them partner IT teams because we work for the same customer, right? So we actually really need to work together to, collectively evolve how we manage applications, systems, architecture with a business focus more than technology focus. And some of the unique challenges at NCI is that, we have researchers in their lab doing great scientific, work. They have immense growing needs of compute power and data storage, and they often deal with legacy infrastructure, system, and software. So the need to modernize is there. So it's a unique opportunity for us as IT teams and leaders to actually leverage emerging technologies to work with them, collaborate with them to really modernize, their infrastructure for the scientific mission that they strive for. So, it's a wonderful experience and privilege.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. We've outlined some of the challenges and the nuances of where CX fits in many government organizations. Up next, how IT leaders can leverage tech to improve customer service for stakeholders inside and outside their operating environments. My expert panel digs in after this break. You're watching Turning Data into Precision-Guided Insights for CX on GovExec TV. We'll be right back.
Technology is constantly evolving with the power to shape how we live our lives, including the delivery of public services. The KPMG Tomorrow's Government Today Thought Leadership Report shares new insights from federal and state government leaders on the state of emerging technology in government. What does the future look like? How will agencies get there, and how soon? The encouraging news is that government leaders are confident in their current technology, and they recognize the urgency of integrating emerging technologies not only to be future-ready, but also to help shape the future. Improving agency operations is paramount, with a top priority of enhancing IT and data systems to strengthen decision-making and efficiency. They strive to build a future-ready workforce, and they're focused on enhancing the constituent experience. To meet these goals, what technologies will make the greatest impact? Surveyed leaders highlight cloud technologies, generative AI, and machine learning. Emerging technologies will bring transformative opportunities for governments and transformative impacts for constituents, and even change the world. But if modern governments are going to spur innovation and keep up with the private sector to drive that change, it's time to start thinking about tomorrow today. Are you ready for the future of technology and government? Read Tomorrow's Government Today. Learn how you can accelerate your own tech-enabled transformation.
Welcome back to Turning Data into Precision-Guided Insights for CX on GovExec TV. I'm your host, Troy Schneider. The C in CX can stand for a number of things. In some cases, it's citizens. In others, it's customers. It can also apply to contractors, employees, researchers, and other stakeholders throughout an organization. Emerging technology can help drive better experiences for all of these groups, but only if properly planned and deployed. So here again, to discuss this important topic, we have Denise Kitts from the Veterans Experience Office, we have Sue Pan from the National Cancer Institute, and Tom Frame of KPMG. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
So Tom, we'll start with you. As agencies work to bring these technologies to bear, whether it's no-code and low-code solutions or other tools, how do they keep CX at the forefront of those efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. So government agencies have been quick to adopt low-code, no-code solutions with the specific promise of speed to market, right? The idea that pre-built features and functions can be turned on quickly with little to no customization or configuration to support the mission quickly. But to your point, Troy, it's a great question to ask around how to keep CX at the forefront from any digital transformation effort, especially when looking at a low-code, no-code platform. So a couple things, right? First, and I mentioned this earlier, but it's really about identifying your entire user community upfront and early in the process, right? Again, focusing on the initial set of users may not really look at the total experience as a whole and determine all of the impacted users, those that are going to be actually using the new solution and those that may be impacted downstream. Secondly, really focusing, and this one may sound obvious, but focusing on engaging users early, often, and then throughout the entire development process, right? So from initial demand intake through requirements, design, development, and then even the release and deployment from a monitoring standpoint, right? Getting feedback and sentiment from the actual users of the system early and often allows the modernization team to pivot based on feedback, and it also really helps users feel as though they have a part in owning the solution that's being developed to really help user adoption as a whole. Similar to the second point, really involving users in testing, both at the design phase and then also throughout development and at user testing is extremely important. That's your opportunity to really observe how the users are interacting with the solution and to determine if workflows and user interfaces are being interacted with as we as technologists intend. And then finally, in my opinion, it's really about determining and creating how you're going to measure success from a customer experience perspective early, and then driving the measurement of that throughout the entire process, right? So making sure that upfront you have a benchmark for what success looks like from a customer experience perspective, and then driving that through measurement throughout the entire process.
Okay, and Sue, I see you nodding to a lot of what Tom said, and in the earlier segment you talked about many of the different digital transformation efforts that your organization's doing. How do you work to bring CX into those efforts?
You know, I think CX is something, as I said, new and not new, right? So for IT, it's all about a customer experience. However, the IT folks are very focused on technology, not enough of understanding the customer. So a lot of what we do is really making sure we're building up that single system of record of IT data. And then also another part of the effort that we're driving is really bringing folks like, Denise's organization, some independent communication and CX expertise to really help conduct interviews and stakeholder interviews, customer interviews, and perform some data analysis of our existing data and performing communication audit, look at all of our communication channels and kind of identify gaps for us to improve. And most importantly, also to kind of help drive some of those baseline metrics for CX that we could measure, how we're doing, maybe like surveys and customer feedback, doing some qualitative and quantitative measures of number of consultations requests we received, and a lot of data we could build up. So we're still work in progress in that effort beyond building up the technical foundation for digital transformation, but also to really now have some dedicated funding, which is a challenge for us to really do this very specific on CX, improving CX. And then I would say another aspect is what I mentioned earlier about the digital services center operation, the technical governance framework that we built for every digital portfolio that we have in our portfolio. That includes applications that we build, the technology tools that we implement and manage at the enterprise level, and the system architecture, reference architecture, solution patterns. So we want to make sure that we have that human-centered design and design thinking build as throughout the life cycle. What that means is that you have, from a UX perspective of a web application or portal that we build, you have good navigation, good layout, good I would say accessibility, compliance, even compliance to DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And also, most importantly, that you have to make sure that your products meet the demand of the business through the testing, frequent testing, early on engagement with the customers. And actually, low-code, no-code is a big deal for us as well. We implement a platform called ServiceNow. We use no-code, low-code development. And we also started to implement a citizen development program, which allows business teams to do development on their own, to prototype on their own, because they understand their business the best, and then using us to harden. So we just started out that program, actually.
Very good. So. And I'm glad you mentioned human-centered design, because it's a good chance to sort of bring the technology back to the users and the different constituencies. And Denise, I'm wondering, we have so many different groups. I mentioned at the opening remarks, whether it's employees, whether it's end customers. How do you work to make sure that human-centered design is at the center of the efforts for whatever the target customer is in this CX effort?
Yeah, I think thank you for the question. What I think human-centered design and design thinking is critical to make sure that we're actually delivering things that matter to our customers and to our employees. So we've talked a little bit about it earlier with the quantitative and qualitative data. So doing the research, having the data speaks volumes, right? I think once you have data, it really takes the ambiguity out of decision making. So when you're doing digital modernization, you know what problem you're trying to solve. So first and foremost, using human-centered design for problem framing and to understand, what problem are we trying to fix? Then you can look at infrastructure and you can look at infrastructure, and then how do you measure it? How do you know you're actually moving the needle? So I think Tom talked a little bit about metrics. Metrics are key to anything we do. So when using human-centered design to kind of define the problem, understand what problem we're trying to solve, and then defining metrics around that. So again, like in the digital space, is the service easy? Is it effective? Does it represent the different personas? Are we making it easy? Are we putting the veteran in the center of everything we do? So I think really just pushing that research and pushing that data down to people that are actually building the services. And we have great partnerships with OI&T. They have a great appetite for the research that we're doing. They want to build things that matter. They want to build things that meet the customer's needs. So it's just been a really good working relationship in terms of people using the data that we're actually getting from our customer. Even to the point where with our CIO, I love this, he comes to the VEO office saying what's the top 10 things that are the top 10 pain points with our customers? What are the top 10 pain points with our employees? Because it's the IT folks that are making decisions every day around modernization. And so, are they swinging at the right things? And even I would say, at the VA, there's a lot of modernization efforts. Congress is always telling us to do something bigger and better, right? And as we embark on those modernization efforts, making sure that we do have the customer's voice infused into those, and that we really are keeping the veteran in the middle of everything we do. We do.
Great. And Tom, does that resonate with you? Is that the
Yeah.
right way to sort of define success?
Absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to add in listening to both Denise and Sue is one of the other ways to ensure success is actually working directly, especially when you talk low code, no code, working directly with the platform providers and getting that feedback back to them. These companies, you mentioned ServiceNow, they have invested heavily and are investing heavily in improving their overall experience. And they love to hear specifically from implementers, but also people that are on the ground using their solutions to better the overall experience that they're providing from an out-of-the-box platform perspective. So, that insight back to CIO and CTO and the system integrators is largely important, but also working directly hand in hand with the platform providers to enhance overall experience and what they can provide as a solution is extremely important.
Very good. And another technology we've heard a lot about lately is artificial intelligence in every sphere, and it certainly extends to CX. Like, where are the places where using AI and machine learning really makes sense in the CX mission? And Denise, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure, thanks for that question. It is a very hot topic. We, in the Veterans Experience Office, I mentioned earlier that we use a platform to do surveys, and we get a lot of survey data back, and the surveys have comments. Mm-hmm. So one of the areas that early on for the last 5 or 6 years where we've used a little bit of ML and AI is against those comments, looking for the trends, and being able to action against those comments. For example, when we survey veterans and we look at their comments, we apply these algorithms to the comments, look for things like veterans who are at risk. And then we're able to trigger alerts to the Veterans Crisis Line, to the Veterans Homeless Center. So that's one of the early adoptions around ML and AI that we've done with survey data. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We're also moving into more of the predictive space, but I could talk a little bit about that now or later.
Please.
So we have a lot of data, both qualitative and quantitative data, and we put a lot of it out to our customers to try to help them with insights and infusing it into the workflow. But I think the big opportunity around the predictive CX and AI and ML, a little dyslexia, AL and MI, is really around helping people understand what they really need to act on, getting rid of the noise, because we push a lot of data out to the front lines, and being able to kind of use this advanced technology to help people understand who needs the most help, what part of the experience matters the most, is kind of where we're going. So we're starting, again, I mentioned earlier about taking CX data and commingling it with operational data, dark data, and being able to do the predictions. We've got a couple of pilots underway where we've built out some models to look at retention in the medical centers. It's been wildly successful in terms of being able to use both a combination of CX data and kind of the dark data, the operations data, to really understand what moves the needle, so you can take the guesswork out of it. So before, it's you look at all this data and it's kind of well, what really matters? Well, with the predictive CX, not only can I pinpoint and tell you exactly what's an accelerator to trust, or deaccelerator, or a detractor from trust, I can also help run scenarios in terms of well, what happens if I do X, Y, Z, to the metric.
Interesting.
So it's really a game changer for us, and I'm super excited about it.
Right. And now, Tom, both of those examples were relatively early stages, and how can agencies work to use emerging technologies like AI and ML in a way that's effective without maybe getting out ahead of their skis and doing things they're not quite ready for yet?
Sure. I mean, Denise, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think what's most important, as everyone in industry as a whole is looking to figure out how to adopt AI across their organization, I think what's most important is really marrying your organization's AI strategy with their CX strategy, right? And making sure that there's direct alignment between what you're tackling from an AI perspective and what you're applying AI to from a problem space to what you're looking to get out of your customer experience program, right? So again, we keep talking about metrics, but it's really aligning that AI strategy to help enhance and meet the metrics that you've defined earlier in the process. The other theme that I think we've talked about quite a bit today is data, right? And I think any AI effort is wholly reliant on a clean data set and a data strategy that aligns with the organization's CX metrics, right? So really focusing on fixing any data issues, infrastructure, governance, and quality to really fuel any AI effort that you're looking to tackle, right? Because without the clean data set, as Sue specifically was talking about, it's going to be a challenge to really get the most out of what you're looking to get out of from an AI perspective.
Very good. And I want to talk about how to get the most out of it and make sure that all these data findings are being put to use. And we've touched on a few places, but Sue, you mentioned governance as an important part of this early. How are you and your organization making sure that you take all these findings from the data and sort of feed them back into improving the CX efforts?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that NCI is a very research and technical focus, and we haven't really formally defined CX specifically, but I think one of the things that's really critical is the metrics, right? Is really defining metrics so that you can actually have some baseline to measure how you perform. So our center director, Tony Kreblarge, and CIO Jeff Schilling, they actually have the vision for the DSC, Digital Services Center, to be the digital transformation center of excellence for NCI. So it's a big hat that we fill. So it's important we measure how well we're actually doing digital transformation. What does that mean for the customer experience? So I would say defining those metrics that measure how we do on this journey is very, very critical. And I want to touch a little bit on the AI and machine learning as well. I mean, there's a huge demand within the research community around the, we have big data, right? How do we make intelligence out of that, So there are many non-IT, I would say, scientific use cases for AI, ML, as well as non-IT use cases. And I want to kind of tell you an example that we actually built within the DSC. We implemented a virtual agent, not for IT, but for Center for Cancer Training, for them to actually use a virtual agent tool to actually help the trainees and students to identify resources quickly for career development, training opportunities. That was a very interesting implementation of a virtual agent that we did for them.
Excellent.
And
excellent.
yeah, and I also I think you guys know that Gen AI is a big topic everywhere, right? And we also have a huge demand on that. So I think one of the biggest issues that we all deal with is that having some clear guidance and policy around security, risk management, right? So IT has a very critical role for that because Gen AI changes customer experience completely, right? But, there's definitely very critical for that, human control, the risks, the ethics, the content, the model, the grounding, there's some technical aspects of Gen AI that all requires human touch. And so I think I just want to quickly chime in on that aspect.
It's an important point. And we are almost at time, but Denise, I want to give you a chance for the last word on that sort of continuous measurement and bringing the insights from all this data back in. Final advice to organizations about how to make sure that they're bringing their data to bear?
I would say governance is key. There's different ways of doing it. I think there's like a strong, forceful way and a soft way in terms of ensuring the accountability and looking at the data. I mean, you have companies like Marriott that are very much what I would say more on the stronger side of holding accountability, where if you don't do CX a certain way, you could lose the brand, right? You have other companies that are more probably in a softer touch, which are using governance to kind of infuse insights. VA and companies like LL Bean, we have like an omni-channel governance layer where you take all this data and you kind of take all the insights, good and bad, bright spots, pain points, and push that out down into like the strategies and the prioritization of people that are actually implementing the services. I think that's kind of the top-down approach. I think the other thing that's really key is pushing the insights into the people that are actually on the front line,
Right.
the people that are actually having the interactions with the customer. And I think some of this, some of the AI stuff will help with like virtual assistant and contact centers, helping people understand sentiment analysis. There's just a whole lot we can do with data. But I think it's really critical to make sure that whatever you do with data, that you push it into the workflow of the customers. So whatever they're already doing, whether it's a clinical encounter, with a veteran, or they're processing a claim, you don't want to stand up anything that new. Whatever those insights are, you want to make sure that they're very actionable. It's just not a lot of noise, and push it into the workflow of the people that are actually having the encounter with the customer.
Very good. Well, we are going to have to leave it there. But Denise, Sue, Tom, thanks so much for sharing your time and insights with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, our audience, for tuning in today. I hope you learned a thing or two about customer experience and about data's potential to drive precision-guided insights and improve operations at your organization. For GovExec TV, I'm Troy Schneider. Have a great day.